Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I have a cold, so my voice has actually gotten better, but, I've got the Rudolph runny nose, not feeling entirely well, which is why there wasn't a show last night. I came home and went right to bed, and I'll probably have a few sneezing attacks in the show. But I can't go too long without live streaming. So before we get started on the history stuff, my hair is a mess. We need to do, the normal request for support. And how do I even, I'm trying to even think of an original way to word this. I really need your support. It's a tough time for YouTubers. And if you do like this kind of content, would like to see it continue, please go to patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I would truly appreciate it. And also I'd like to mention my sponsor, or one of them, which is Asteros. And that's kind of got moved off to the side. I don't like that. We want to be able to see that all the way. Here we go. I guess that's good right there. So Asteros.com, they are a cybersecurity services business. You know what cybersecurity is. The LP has learned what cybersecurity is. So if you go to asteros.com/free, you could get a free surface penetration audit. It basically will poke and prod at your digital locks to see where your company or organization might be a little deficient, and they can provide some recommendations and, tell you what those kinds of services might entail. So please go to asteros.com/free. And thank you, Asteros, for being a sponsor of this show. All right, this is exciting. We're getting into a new LP News. We finished the September-October 1974. We're moving into November, December. And Wayne, if you're watching this, hello, I can't get the printer to print. I wanted to print this issue so I could have it in front of me to read easily, and I hate our printer. I hate it. It doesn't print half the time. It says it's in use. Who's it in use by? I'm the only one there. I tried turning it off and on again. Thank you, IT crowd. But no, it doesn't work. I hate it. I hate wireless printers. Am I the only one here who hates wireless printers? They just never frickin' work. Anyway, so that means I've gotten Bunchy. Yes, I see Bunchy is still freaking out because Bunchy is also very upset with my printer, or my lack of a printer, or my non-printer, or my pretending to be a printer and taking up space in the office. So I had to download the issue, and I have it on my desktop, which means I might get all squinty and be like, what does that say? Because I don't have a printed copy in front of me. So I am pulling it up, and I'm trying to make it as large as possible.
That's what she said.
For certain, and see if I can deal with this. So I'm getting that up on the main screen. My God, and it's tiny print. But we're also going to put this up on the screen for you guys, but I'm getting it first where I can see it, and then I will put it on the screen for you guys. But need some liquid nourishment first. Like my Avon, this was the Cape Cod collection. Those of you who are into, like, not the Avon makeup. Avon had a lot of, like, little collectibles, and these were just some cool glasses. They just remind me of, like, something you'd be drinking in a palace. I love them. I have a bunch of them. But, okay. Are you ready? I think I'm ready. Let me see if I have the screen pulled up properly. And, you know, we're doing these shows in bite-sized sections now. Oh, I know what I forgot to say. Look at the way I bump my camera just by hitting my desk. And I don't have my candles on. I need to put my little cherub candles on. There we go. But what I also like to say is, all super chats matter. Help keep me in liquid refreshment, or otherwise help keep the show on by sending me a super chat once in a while. And you know what? Before we get started on history, we're making history every day now, aren't we? I wanted to deal with, and I'll do this again in the LNC recap whenever I do that. We're not obviously doing it today because I did one on Monday after the LNC meeting. The next one will be next Friday. But with a current controversy. And I know some people are like, let me do Bunchy again. I know some people are like that, going, you of all people can't say this. And that's because some people lack nuance. I'm sorry, they do. Things are nuanced. And in general, unless you have some very, very good reason and at least some kind of evidence, and a charitable interpretation just doesn't make sense, you shouldn't rush to judgment to just try to interpret things people say, even people you don't like. Maybe I should say, especially people you don't like, in the worst possible way. So today, there was social media hysteria. Say it isn't so. Libertarians were not clutching their pearls, were they? Yes, of course they were. Because they didn't like the way our chair said something on Reason. And they decided to interpret it. Now, this is bad faith. I'm sorry. It's bad faith. And if you are one of the people who did this, shame on you. You are acting in bad faith. So they interpreted her words to mean, when she was talking about a lack of training in the party, that they've interpreted it to mean we have never had any kind of campaign training, and put up a picture of her attending a campaign training like 2 years ago. Do you think she is so stupid that she walks into Wall's face first, that she would say that we've never had something that she quite obviously attended? When your premise requires people to be that stupid, it's your premise that is stupid, not the person. We have talked endlessly in public LNC meetings about the candidate training we've done in the past. So obviously that is not what she is referring to. Now you can complain and say perhaps she should have worded things clearly, but it's also your job as a listener to try to interpret things in the way they were meant. And if something requires someone to be an absolute idiot, generally, that's not the proper interpretation. That's just humaning. That's just being a decent human being. And I don't know if you've ever done live interviews. Sometimes you don't word things exactly the way you wish, or you think you worded things just fine. You go back and you listen to it, and you're like, I wish I had said things differently. Or because you knew what you meant in your head, it was very clear to you coming out. But to somebody who doesn't live in your head, it might be a little less clear. Could we stop looking for the worst possible interpretations of every single thing? Now, that's not to say with any person that sometimes a bad interpretation is the correct one. But if it requires somebody absolutely lying about something that is so easily proven, you're probably wrong. But go on with your bad selves if you're one of these bad faith people, but shame on you. And no one should ever trust you to give honest assessments of something. People who watch this show regularly know that I give the benefit of doubt to even people I don't like, unless on a particular topic they have given me reason not to. Like, for instance, when I was on the past LNC, they had all kinds of secret discussions on a secret email list. Then I had good reason to think they were being secretive, particularly when we found out that they were having secret discussions, like when they were trying to oust me and were weaponizing staff, which is a fact, not a conspiracy theory. But if I were to say, oh, ex-LNC member says there's no ocean bordering California, and then there's a picture of them standing by the ocean within the past 2 years, well, that would be a dumb interpretation. Okay, I think I've got my point across, but I'm just so tired of bad faith interpretations in this party. There are going to be plenty of things that you're going to be able to legitimately criticize. Perhaps I should be happy because this stuff is so ridiculous that if the time comes that there's a legitimate criticism, no one's going to believe you. Why is have you noticed the tone on my camera keeps going from like more of a yellow tint to more of a blue tint? It's very blue in the background right now because it's gray, so it should be kind of a blue cast, but it keeps shifting. Maybe it's because of my shirt, because it is quite bold yellow here in the shirt. All right, let's have some more liquid refreshment. And please do comment if you're here, particularly if you disagree. I'd love to talk to you. But speaking of training in history now, I posted earlier. You think it's the shirt, Trish? Yeah, it might be. Because have you noticed too that I think my camera's getting confused and trying to freak out, like to try to get it right. But I want to show you guys something cool because something really good came out of these discussions today. And I think a lot of the discussions were really bad, but I like it when good things come out of these bad discussions. And if you haven't seen this, I posted it today, but you might not have seen it. I want to show you guys something super cool. I'm pulling it up on Lpedia. Okay, let me share my screen. So, on the subject of training, of course we have had historical... Oh, God, a bunch of comments just came up. I'm going to look at them. Let me just finish this one thought, and then I'm going to look at them. Of course we've had historical training in the party. Nobody is claiming that. There's been a lot of historical manuals written Do you know where any of them are? Now, apparently, I just learned today that a bunch of them are over on the We Are Libertarians podcast page, and that's great. I've requested access to that folder. I haven't been granted access to it yet, but when I am, or if you are, can you send me the manuals that are there? I'll make sure they are much more publicly available. But to criticize, to say, oh, well, I've had them available on my personal podcast page for years, that's not a public party resource. That's great that you've done that, and I hope you continue to do that. But you can't blame a bunch of people for not knowing what's on your own personal show, which you have a benefit in promoting. Okay, I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just trying to be honest here. So if someone gets me those manuals, I will get them on Lpedia, which no one profits from. And it is a party-owned asset where everything can be in one place. It doesn't require you to request access. You could just go there and grab them. But there's been a ton of manuals written over the years. No one is denying that. See that flicker that just happened? It's really distracting me, I might eventually have to break down and not use my iPhone, because I'm using my iPhone as my camera, but I think the picture's pretty crisp. But yeah, all kinds of manuals have been written over the years. That's one reason why I started investing in Lpedia. I didn't start Lpedia. Lpedia's been around since 2006. I didn't join the party until 2014. But I got really involved in Lpedia in 2016. But that's one reason why I got involved. I knew that all of this money and time and effort had been put into these historical things, not just campaign manuals, but also press releases, white papers. All of this stuff is sitting in a warehouse, and people didn't have access to it. Of course it's been done. Angela's point is it hasn't been persistent. We need something that people can go to on their own time and peruse a whole catalog of things that also, not just campaign training, but how to be a party treasurer, how to be a party secretary, how to do all kinds of things. And yes, these may have been written by some state parties, but if they're not in a central location where everyone can get them, and there's a lot of this stuff on LP Action right now, that's what our institutional problem is. We lack institutional memory and institutional organization, and that's one thing that Lpedia is designed to help us with. So I got a couple more manuals sent to me today, and that is great. I'll be getting them up on Lpedia. But let me show you one super cool historical manual, and then I will get to the comments. And let me just take comments off here for a second. I'll read aloud the ones I'm answering to. Okay, here's a training manual. God, I burped. Oh, on Lpedia. How to have fun losing your race for Congress. I think that's a great title. This is up on Lpedia. It's been up here for a while. This was written in 1994. Let's look at the PDF of this thing. And it's a really good manual. Hold on, it just takes a second to load. Here we go. And we got permission from Gene. It took a while to get this up because I did have to get in touch with Gene and get his permission to post it. But look at all of this that's been written. But did you know about this before tonight? You got to know where to look. Plus, some of this information needs to be updated because it's from 94, but the principles remain the same. And something he said, and this is for a person who wants to be, as he notice what he says right here. This manual is for the person who wants to make the commitment to run as an informational candidate. Now, I know this isn't like something Justin Amash is all about. He thinks we're only about winning elections, but this is what the earlier party, the view that they had, is that informational candidates and educational initiatives make a big, big difference. But so this is a manual on how to be an informational candidate. But he had something super cool in here I wanted to read out to you guys. And I am trying to find it. And it talks about how to message. I know one word that was in here, and I want to read this. You know, what's the word cow? Where is it? Okay, here it is. It says, as an informational candidate, this is funny. I don't necessarily agree, but I like the way he worded this. As an informational candidate, throw out the text of the national platform while embracing all of its principles. The platform of the National Libertarian Party outlines a roadmap for libertarian utopia. Its words are harsh, using more negative words than perhaps any other document. We oppose. We call for the abolition. Challenge the cult of the omnipotent state. The platform doesn't explain what benefits any novice to our party could hope to receive if they embrace libertarianism. The document speaks at a level well above the head of the average voter and reporter. Given the characteristics of most voters, it is a poor tool for selling our party. As a candidate, you need to stay focused on the libertarian principles that bind us together. So here's what I thought was great. He said, think of a ballot as a menu in a restaurant and voters as customers. Each political party gets to place one item on the menu. The voters then choose what they want. Placing our platform on the menu is like describing a hamburger as chopped up dead cow on a bleached wheat bun. It is technically correct. We would never throw out the chopped up dead cow or bleached bun because then we wouldn't have a burger to offer. But that's not the way to whet the consumer's appetite. Instead, we need to sell the sizzle. And that is really cool the way he worded that. I loved it. But anyway, I would highly recommend you going to Lpedia. Just search for training manual, or you search for how to have fun losing your race for Congress. And we will get more candidate training manuals up here. Okay. So I hope you found that super cool. I loved that manual when I found it. But I got a couple more in my email that was sent to me today that I was super happy about. Let me put that comment widget back up, and I'll read out, though, because they disappear, comments if there's any that I need to answer. Okay, let's see here. Everyone's more talking about why my picture is doing weird colors. Right now, Maximum Weeb, the historical documentation has all been in a warehouse. It is very slowly, because it's tedious archival work, getting up on Lpedia. Lpedia is, it grows by the day, but we need more volunteers. Right now, it's just a few of us. Like, I work on Lpedia on average a couple hours a day, and I've been doing that since 2016. It's a lot of work. Okay, let's continue. All right, so I think most of it was you guys chatting with each other, which I truly appreciate. So now let's get to the actual issue. So we are dealing with November, December 1994, and I know Bunchy here is still freaking out, and I still love that 1970s logo. So we're going to deal with a couple articles today. I already talked for a half hour on it, everything but the issue, but I'm going to get to that now. So the headline, and on the front there, you can see her. She's talking at the Holiday Inn in Strongsville. This is Kathleen Haroff. She was a very prominent libertarian woman in the 70s and I think through the 80s. And if I remember correctly, she was chair of Ohio. I know she's ran for national chair before and was a perennial candidate. So the title is, but let's get into some of the other cool things we look at. This is number 23. November, December 74. We said that. Want to look at the bottom of the page. So nothing interesting there. Okay. So let's get into this thing about Kay Haroff's campaign. It says, led by the highly visible senatorial candidacy of Kathleen Haroff in Ohio. Look, I remembered right that she was out of Ohio. Libertarian Party candidates and LPers running as independents. Now remember, even today, most of our candidates are high-profile candidates, national candidates, federal candidates, I guess is what I mean to say, have to run as independents. A lot of people don't realize that, particularly if they don't have to in your state. Throughout the nation, generated massive amounts of publicity for libertarian ideas over the past several months. While election results were mixed in terms of vote objectives, virtually all LP campaigns received more news coverage than had been anticipated. Haroff received 79,400 votes in Ohio to finish third, behind Democrat John Glenn and Republican Ralph Perk. Her hard-hitting, no-compromise campaign enabled her to finish ahead of the other independent on the ballot who was associated with the Conservative American Party. Jerry Millett received 7,152 votes in his race against the incumbent Democrat in Louisiana's 7th Congressional District. That was 11% of the total vote cast. That's pretty good. This is the highest percentage ever received by an LP candidate for national office. I don't know if okay, that's true but not true. Remember I mentioned Sims before, and I always forget his first name. He was technically a Republican, but he was an ANCAP, and he was out of Idaho. We didn't have any kind of ballot access there. He used our platform in his campaigning. I think that's pretty damn close in the early 70s to being an LPer. And he won his campaign, Steve Sims. So I would think he got the highest percentage, but I know it's very controversial to consider Steve Sims a libertarian. In other productive campaigns, past Washington State LP Chairman Skip Barron tallied 11.5% of the vote in his race for the 24th Legislative District seat. Also in Washington, Richard Diamond garnered 3% of the vote. And by the way, I got 7.75% of the vote in my race. I wanted more, but I'm not unhappy. Let's put it that way. And I think I gained the respect of the guy who did win, and hopefully we will be able to work together on some issues, particularly one that I'm just really bugged about and sent a not polite email to about them trying to get single-payer health care in Colorado. Ugh, make me want to puke. Also in Washington, okay, we already did that. Both Diamond and Barron received very good publicity, with Barron's percentage vote reportedly being sufficient to guarantee the LP a place on the ballot in 1976. Media coverage. Undoubtedly, the most successful campaign in the country in terms of media coverage was that of New York gubernatorial candidate Jerry Tuchelli. The Tuchelli campaign was written up in all major New York newspapers and was responsible for 2 nationally syndicated columns in the Washington Post. His vote total, while falling disappointingly short of the 50,000 objective, nonetheless broke the magic 10,000 barrier. And he, I think, was writing a write-in campaign. I think he was. I'm trying to remember from past episodes. If so, that's pretty damn good, which no minor party had been able to do in the last gubernatorial election. At press time, election officials were still unable to give final results, but it appears that Tuchelli received approximately 10,200 votes, which means the FLP, which is the Free Libertarian Party, which we once again have a Free Libertarian Party, this time in New Mexico, has outpolled all of the left-wing minor parties. Gary Greenberg, who actively worked on the campaign, cited the very poor ballot position the FLP had in most of the state, often in the extreme lower right-hand corner. So I guess it wasn't a write-in. They did have a ballot position, as a major reason for the lower than expected vote total. Even so, said Greenberg, name recognition of the Libertarian Party is incredibly high in New York now. I feel we have laid the groundwork for a very respectable vote in the presidential campaign in 1976. Bureaucratic harassment, you don't say. In the other most publicized LP race in New York, Sandy Cohen received 1.2% of the vote against incumbent Hamilton Fish and Democrat Nick Engel. Cohen suffered from adverse publicity towards the end of his 22-month campaign as state and local bureaucrats challenged the legality of a campaign poster outside his headquarters and a lottery he held to raise money. We covered those, I think, in the very last to this one episode of LP Time Capsule. We showed that poster, and we showed how he was getting persecuted for his very modest. He raised like $200, and they were harassing him over it. Not content with damaging Cohen's vote total, the bureaucrats are now claiming he broke the minimum wage law by paying youngsters $1 an hour for campaign work. Cohen ran a tireless campaign which featured a continuous stream of news releases which outlined libertarian solutions to the problems of the day. In other New York races, Guy Riggs received about 1.2% of the vote in his race for the state assembly. 3 LP candidates who were also on the conservative line, Virginia Walker, Alan LePage, and Mary Jo Wanzer, received 6.3%, 3.6%, and 5.0% respectively. All were candidates for, and then it says, please turn to page 7. You guys know how much I hate that, but let's turn to page 7. So this is page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It better be there. Yes, it's in the lower. So now let me, on my own little screen here, find page 7 where I have this blown up really big so I can read it. Okay, page 7. Candidates generate publicity in new areas. State Assembly. So that's where that sentence ends. Contempt of court. And Utah National ExCom member Carl Bray was the subject of a pre-election attack by the IRS that resulted in a contempt of court conviction, which was well publicized in Utah papers. Bray had refused to provide the records of a company he formerly owned that had courageously taken out a full-page ad challenging the constitutionality of Nixon's wage and price controls. Bray received only 1,400 votes as a result of the publicity, after having scored as high as 8% in earlier polls. Undaunted, Carl Bray has already announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate in 1976. In addition, 20 other Utah LPers have reportedly declared their intention to run for office in 1976. Yet another victim of adverse publicity was congressional candidate Bob Steiner in New Jersey. Steiner was involved in a personal fracas. That's not a word you hear very often. That was well publicized in his district. He polled about 1,000 votes. Vast majority. It says a vast majority of publicity was very good, however. In California, for example, LP write-in candidates John Hospers, governor, Dave Bergland, attorney general, Bill White, U.S. Senate, and Bill Sussel, lieutenant governor, campaigned vigorously up and down the state, successfully overcoming the barriers to media coverage of not being on the ballot. While final results are not yet available, it appears that Hospers got about 2,000 votes, or roughly twice the number of write-ins he received in his presidential race in California in 1972. Lloyd Taylor, the LPC candidate for treasurer, was also active during the campaign. Okay, let me go up here. The LPC is co-plaintiff in a suit against the state of California challenging the extremely difficult ballot requirements in that state. The case went to court December 13th. Another high-visibility write-in campaign was conducted by Paul Baird in Alaska. He received between 200 and 300 votes for Congress, and the campaign resulted in dozens of new members for the ALP. In Minnesota, Richard Klenow and Claudia Jensen, running for governor and lieutenant governor, respectively, garnered about 2,000 votes. Outside the party, numerous Libertarian and Libertarian-leaning candidates ran for office as Republicans or Democrats in 1974, with varying degrees of success. In Idaho, Bob Smith, a former aide to Steve Sims, who I mentioned earlier, ran a strong race against incumbent Senator Frank Church. Smith, who is credited with influencing Sims in a libertarian direction, received 43% of the vote. Or does that say 4.3? I can't really read that, but whatever. Sims, remember, though, did eventually apostatize and become a neoconservative statist, but he wasn't when he first ran. Maximum Weeb, I read your comment too quickly, and I glanced over and I thought it said have a couple weeks worth of blood. And I was like, what is this, a vampire I have in my chat here? Oh, God, that was funny for me, at least. Henson Moore may have been elected to Congress in Louisiana as a Republican. The vote was being disputed at press time. Moore is reported to have strong libertarian positions and was supported by libertarians in his district. In New Hampshire, Art Ketchkin, the LP state vice chairperson, received 47% of the vote in his contest for the state legislature. Wow, that's damn good. He ran as a Democrat after narrowly losing in the Republican primary. Jack O'Brien ran as an independent in New Hampshire for Rockingham County Commissioner and totaled 8.8% of the vote. O'Brien was a vocal supporter of the LP during the 74 campaign. In Oklahoma, Mickey Edwards had libertarian support and wound up with 48.3% of the vote for Congress in Oklahoma City. He ran as a Republican. That's what we had to do back then. Okay. That's all we're going to cover of this issue for today. That was quite a bit. Let's go back to the main screen. During that time, we often had to run on other ballot lines. Do not take that as an excuse that we should be dropping our drawers for Republicans today. Things were different 40 years ago. And it looks like Mr. Mark Victor in Arkansas whored himself out to the Republican for nothing. Because the Republican doesn't look like he's going to win. At least if he had gotten a win, he could say he did it for something, but he sold his soul for nothing. For a bowl of pottage. People who are familiar with the Bible will get that reference. Sold his birthright. Anyway, so we will then continue in all of these various columns throughout the months of November and December. I do hope you find these treks through LP history useful and educational. As you know, history, not drama, is my first love. So these are the shows I truly enjoy doing. And I'm worried because I almost said AJ. I was thinking of an old friend of mine. JJ's not here. He must be at his covert organizational meeting where his Republican pay bosses are telling him more on how to infiltrate the Libertarian Party by rescuing state affiliates from being destroyed because, that's what Republican operatives do. Any of you who buy that narrative, you are fucking idiots. I know a few of you watch this show. Hi, Richard. Anyway, we're going to go now. Just checking the comments to make sure there isn't anything here. No, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like everyone's having a really nice chat amongst themselves, which is always cool to go to a YouTube chat and be able to have. I made it through the whole show without coughing or sneezing, and now at the end. All right, I think that's a sign for me to go. I'll see you guys later. Hopefully you'll register for an account on LPedia and start adding your pieces of LP history. Have a good night. Love you all.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.